This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
Salam and welcome to the Halftime Show with Omar Adori. I am your host, covering everything sport, international, local. Hope you're having a blessed day wherever you're tuned in around the world, whether it's 95 FM, Pulse95Radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, or even if you're chilling, listening to us at home from the comfort of your own screen on YouTube, live at Pulse 95 Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending Saturday with me. So keep me updated if there's anything I'm missing. But at the time being, I'm going to need your ears because we're going to have a great show in store. So what do we have in store today? Is being in the right headspace the key to performance? Have a think about that for a second. Normally, we talk about the physical aspect a lot. We talk about the mental aspect as well and how important it is to channel the brain to be able to get that ready. But when does the process start? We're starting off with that on the Halftime Show today in the first segment. In the second segment, now there's been much publicity around a certain athlete called Gareth Bale. So we are going to be talking about him. Is he misunderstood or is he mischievous? Because he should be arriving at Tottenham Hotspur today. In the third segment, how much does the surface actually affect the performance? We look at cricket in the UAE and does the ground really make a difference in performance? On the fourth segment, we're answering your questions, going through the show together, helping you guys get a good idea and a good feel of the show today on the Halftime Show. I've got to give a couple of shout outs though, and one of them has to be to I want to say Auntie Wafa Al-Fadl and her son Abdullah, who gave me a lot of good feedback yesterday. It's kind of weird when people say, you know, we watch you on the show and we love this and we like that and you can probably improve this a bit. I love the feedback yesterday and I really appreciate every single one of you who's listening in or tuned in on the Instagram Live or even on the YouTube. Thank you so much. So safe travels to Wafa Al-Fadl and nice to meet you, Abdullah Al-Fadl as well. And also David Tayong. That's another one of the people that actually spoke to me and said, oh yeah, you're on the show, well then give me a shout. So there you are, David, there is your shout out. And the last one, I gotta say, someone tuned into my show last week and for those that know Omnia Saleh from Future Talk weekdays 2 to 3, she always comes on during the breaks, normally on my live, and we always have a good time. And this guy said to me, hey, listen, man, I love your show. And I was like, oh, thank you so much, man. You listened to it? And he's like, yeah, I watched it. And then he just shouted, cookie! Just started shouting cookies. And anyone who knows that, you have to tune in on the weekdays, Monday and Wednesday, 3 to 4, and you'll find out why we have this private joke with Omnia Saleh about cookies. But there you go, you have it. Go get yourself some water, get yourself a nice little tea, and then come back because I'm going to have some music. And then the first segment right after this on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Aduri on Pulse 95.
Sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Aduri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international, local. Right, let's go right into it. Let's dive into it now. We talk about mental fitness on the show. We talk about emotional fitness. Most of the time I bring on guests that can discuss that and enhance what's going on in our minds when it comes down to performance. Now, this doesn't just mean training. It could be competing. It could be your own personal schedule, your own personal, challenge that you face. And what I'm looking at today is that exact aspect. And I can only speak on experience when it comes down to me, but it does start way before the actual hour of training. So where does it start? It starts from being in the right headspace. Now, when I say headspace, normally it comes down to creating space in your mental channels to be able to perform without any distraction. And we've heard people speak about it in the past when it comes down to clearing your mind. But most of the time, if we're being honest, we're not really clearing our mind because we're still thinking about work, family, social, anything that could be distracting. And amongst those distractions is being able to channel. And as the brilliant Benoit, who got this nickname as the Iceman, if you haven't checked out the show, it's on YouTube on Pulse 95 Radio, where he was helping me control my breathing to be able to get through fight or flight to handle high pressure situations. So amongst those things that we normally do is trying to find that right headspace. Now, why does it trace back to headspace? Because we normally feel, okay, physically we're okay, we should be fine. But it's actually your mind that's, if it's in the right channel, is able to get you to be delivering your objective of the day. So for example, let's say I head down to RBO. Shout out to all my RBO crew. You got Terry, Zara, Marvish, Ruthless Ryan, Abby, Joe, Kareen, Lulu, of course, SA, Megan, Mo. If I have missed, Jalal, Waleed, Michelle. See, I'm going to spend the whole show giving shout outs. But let's say I head down to RBO. The start is way before that. So I'm actually thinking, I've spent my weekend trying to plan how my week's going to go about. But then that day something happens. Could be work related, could be family related, and you're not really in the right frame of mind. How do you switch off? Text me on 4215, Itasalat, or even slide into my DMs at Omar Duri and let me know, where does it start for you? The industry that I'm in, I can only speak on my personal experience as a coach, because not everyone is the same. Some people are able to switch on and switch off very quickly. I forgot Fahima and Kasera and Mohammed. Just in case why didn't you shout me out? And Joe and Richard. So my experience personally in the industry that I'm in, it's very, very tough, and it can be also perceived as quite a visual industry. If you don't look the part normally, it's a challenge. It's a challenge in itself to be able to say you're a coach, but I often won't go around saying it. It's just something that I have to work on performance. Now there's aesthetics that comes into the equation, and with aesthetics normally gives, say it or not, kind of a judgment when it comes down to what a person should look like, and if a person can perform versus a person looking great but not performing. Where do you draw the line? There's so many things that allows you to channel, but it all comes from the mind, and sometimes not being distracted by, let's say, a comment that maybe isn't positive or something that might be able to weigh you down. This is one of the biggest challenges that people can face, and I'm with them on that sense. We've got a boxer, Ruthless Ryan, who's someone who I take a lot of advice from when it comes down to technique, when it comes to boxing. And he said your body can do some amazing things. It's the mind that gets in the way, and that's why headspace is so important. No distractions, absolutely. And also using that as a form of escapism is another thing. Often we put ourselves in situations sometimes where we are distracted, but how do you switch off? Is it through meditation? Is it through planning? Is it through giving yourself a detox from your phone or your computer or emails for 2-3 hours where you can actually dedicate that time to yourself? When we've spoken about self-love before on the show, and that's another thing that it comes down to, being mindful. See, when you step into a place with an open mind, you leave with a mind full, because you've given yourself the opportunity to be able to develop and enjoy the process, which often we don't spend enough time doing. So that was something that I really, really wanted to talk about with you guys today, and it's something that for me personally, since my personal experiences, and maybe let's say some people might call them restrictions or things that have stopped me to get to where I want to get to. If I don't embrace that as part of the process, then it will weigh me down, and I end up finding myself in quite a dark place. So for all those people who are looking to get into fitness, or those people that are on their journey right now, we're all in the same boat, and I'm sure the people who compete and the people who are at the highest level will be able to share that notion with you. And I've been very fortunate enough to work with some of the best athletes in the world and the best coaches in the world, and they've said to me exactly the same thing. James Ellington is another one, fantastic sprinter. I had him on the show, last year, and he also would tell me about his challenges and his accidents, and that's where I can kind of relate to him, because with my car accident, that obviously set me back mentally, mainly because the trauma that I had to face through that was very challenging for me to get over, because I was trying to probably move it to the side and just say it's fine, I'm okay, but in truth I wasn't, and that's why it lasted longer than it is. Because also for men, and speaking about mental health, it's often challenging, and that was something that within time and experience you tend to find out more about yourself more than anything before looking at other people. So there's a little in-depth into how important is it being in the right headspace to be in the performance, because at the end of the day, someone has their own obstacles they face. Let's not be judgmental. Body shaming is another thing that we've spoken about on the show. Let's try and be respectful towards them. Let's encourage, let's be positive, and let's focus on ourselves first before we talk about other people. There you go, there you have it on me. We had our little space now with the headspace. We're talking about an athlete next who has been in the news for maybe all the wrong reasons, in terms of being paid quite nicely and yet not forcing a move. We're going to be talking about Gareth Bale, and before you switch off, not football fans, I'm going to put you in the scenario of Gareth Bale and see how you think whether he's super successful or someone that has basically played his cards right. Stay tuned on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Duri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international, local. Hey, thank you so much for everyone who is tuned in on Instagram Live and on YouTube on Pulse 95 Radio. You guys do keep me company, man. I'll tell you, especially when it's someone that watches the show new or someone that just comes across. It's obviously different if they train with me. Shout out to everyone who trains with me as well. That when I'm in the studio, I don't have the people physically here, so I can only see what's on the screen. Shout out to Maria as well, and Zara, and Ayman, who's giving me some tips on what he does for training. Now, I'm going to put you in a scenario. There's an athlete called Gareth Bale. For those who already know him, you know the story. For those who don't, I'm going to explain the story to see what you would do if you were in his position currently right now. Now, Gareth Bale is someone who is from Wales. He plays professional football. He came on the scene as a youngster in England. Unfortunately, he started off at Southampton, but unfortunately, he played for Tottenham. He won Player of the Year. He built himself up. He's an incredible athlete. He probably could have played any sport. Now, due to him winning Player of the Year and achieving these huge accomplishments, he then gets the transfer to go to probably one of 2 dream clubs that every football fan has, and that is Real Madrid. He goes to Real Madrid and plays with the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Sergio Ramos, Luka Modric, all these players, fantastic players. Now, he is probably the most successful British player in history. And this is where it's crazy, because he has a reputation for being someone that probably earned his way to get the money that he wants and is no longer interested. However, I'm going to throw some stats your way. I want you to picture yourself in his boots. You're earning probably over £400,000 a week. You have achieved multiple trophies, yet you are criticized for not wanting to go out and play in a different country for a different team. So maybe a lack of ambition. However, his stats, and sometimes stats can be deceiving. So before you jump on me for that, I'm not on his side or against him. I'm just putting it out there. His stats, he has more assists than David Beckham. He has more goals than the Brazilian Ronaldo, and he has more trophies than Zinedine Zidane. If you know those 3 names, those stats are frightening. However, he's still criticized for not having the ambition to be able to do that. Now, if you were in his position and you've fallen out of favor despite winning multiple trophies, you've fallen out of favor with the manager, Zinedine Zidane, legend, for some reason. Now, people are criticizing you for not leaving the club. But to leave the club, you need someone to be able to afford your wages and your transfer fee. Real Madrid had accepted him to go to China last year, pre-COVID, of course, and it didn't work out. They held on to him, yet they didn't play him. So there was a lot of things behind the scenes we didn't understand that was going on. But he still gets criticized for enjoying the odd golf game. Now, no one can afford him, and apparently he is in London doing a medical at Tottenham Hotspur as we speak. What would you do if you're in his shoes, especially knowing that if you sit tight where you are, you have earned the right to be at the highest level, your team or your employer doesn't wish to play you or utilize you. You don't feel loved, so obviously you're not putting 100% in training. Some people say he refused to play 1 or 2 games. We don't really know that. It's hard to say that. I've been a coach behind the scenes. I've seen what's happened behind the scenes. So as a person, I'm never one to quickly make my assumption until I know facts. So I'm reluctant to say those are facts. But then again, he is now coming back to England to play on loan for a year. What would you do in his shoes, especially knowing that you've had such a successful career trophy-wise and stats-wise? It's phenomenal. Yet people are still criticizing you for not having the ambition to be able to perform. Is Gareth Bale misunderstood or is he mischievous? Because we've seen those images of him sitting on the substitute bench, you know, half asleep or not interested or yawning or just chuckling or something like that? Or is he very strong mentally to the point where he's taken all this in his stride? He's also the most successful English or British footballer officially, which is again another insane stat. I did say he's got more assists than Beckham. He's got more trophies than Zidane. He's got more goals than the Brazilian Ronaldo. It's crazy. Mufid is on the Instagram Live, and he's telling me Madrid will be paying over half his wages to play at Spurs. I mean, that's exactly my point. You drive someone to the airport and hopefully someone will get him. That is crazy. What do you guys think of the Gareth Bale situation now that I've explained the whole scenario? What would you do if you were Gareth Bale? Would you come back and want to prove a point playing for Tottenham? Is that something that Jose Mourinho wanted, or is that something that his chairman wanted? We all know about the famous All or Nothing documentary that was out on Amazon Prime. It's had mixed reviews, so to say the least, but it gives you a behind-the-scenes scope of what happens at a football club. I personally know there's a few things that might have been premeditated in that documentary, but leave it up to you. When we come back, we're going to be talking about cricket in the UAE. Does the ground really make a difference? And if you have returned back to playing sports, does a ground make a difference to the point where you would go further in location? There we go. See you soon, right after this. I love this tune, Manny Naughty, 4 a.m. Enjoy, I'll be right back. Here we go.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Adori on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Adori. How you guys doing? I gotta give a couple of shouts. What's up, Angelica, Spicy, Maria, Almas, Mimo, Mufid, of course, Alawi from Saudi. And who else we got here? We got a few people here, so thank you very much for tuning in, and I really appreciate your time. Right, so if you're just tuning in, where the hell have you been? Because we've had a great show so far. We've had the first segment is being in the right headspace the key to performance, and where does it start from you? Does it start an hour before? You know, Eamon spoke about this earlier. He was telling me how he has a certain routine with dates and tea and ginseng and all sorts of things. Or does it start a day before? Does it start when it comes down to putting your head down to sleep and recover all the way to the morning? There's so many factors when it comes down to being in the right headspace to be able to perform. Now, the key word is space, because normally our brains are full of what to do, what we have to do, what's left, what happened today, what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's one of the most challenging things we faced as human beings when it comes down to performance. And it's not just performance when it comes down to training, it comes down to also working, competing, challenges. There's so many factors that we bear in mind. Now, in the second segment, we spoke about the Gareth Bale situation, and I explained to you the scenario of what he has found himself in and how he has almost been perceived as either mischievous or misunderstood. Either way, if rumors are true, he's having a medical today at Tottenham and should be announced very, very soon on a 1-year loan. The third segment, which is what you're jumping in right now, is more along the lines of when it comes down to training, or let's say competing. And I'll break it down here because I have some cricket fans who are tuned in, and it comes down to cricket in the UAE. Does the ground really make that much of a difference? And Sharjah obviously are representing with some incredible facilities. And I saw an article earlier, and it made me think about it. It made me think about how I am as a person. The environment obviously makes a huge difference, but also the surface and the idea of having a safe environment is key. Now, when we do look at, cricket, normally we think, okay, well, it all revolves around a 20-meter strip, carefully maintained. But that's not really it by itself, because the boundaries are approximately about 70 meters away. But to hit a ball that far, even over it, it's not as easy as it seems. I remember trying to play cricket back in London at KFA, and my best friend, Onib, actually, he was a bowler and a cricket player as well, which was kind of annoying. When it came down to watching them play and the way they do it, like people like Sam and Laban and all these guys, they were really, really good. So I would be more like a fielder, which was awful. You don't want to see me play cricket. But when I watch the cricket players, I have a respect for them because it requires patience, it requires concentration. There's so many factors. But how much of that is it down to, the environment or even the conditions that you're playing in? Because in the UK, obviously, you've got it's quite gloomy, it's hardly sunny, so the surface would be different. That's why expert analysis have been carefully studying the 3 pitches on which this year's IPL, the Indian Premier League, will be played in the UAE at the Dubai International Cricket Stadium, Sheikh Zayed Cricket Stadium in Abu Dhabi, and Sharjah Cricket Stadium here. So with all the 3, they've got their own identities. The commonality is that they're all desert pitches, which experience the same intensity of the summer months before the mercury gradually dips during the last quarter of the year. So this is why I'm asking. And by the way, for those who are not cricket fans, please don't switch off. It's just me giving some love to those who do play cricket, because there's a huge community here that do that. And I'm sure Abdul Kareem from the Morning Majlis will give us a lot more insight on the different fields. But when you are going into a sport, tennis, football, rugby, cricket, is the condition of the pitch, especially being in warm weather, which, by the way, a lot of people travel to Sharjah and to the UAE to experience warm weather training. It's a huge deal, especially if you live in Europe or if you're based there. Is that a huge factor for us? Considering that if you have children, if you have kids, you want to get them in the right schools or academies. Do you consider that, or is that something you're not really sure of? Or is the brand bigger than the actual place you're training at? So that's for you guys to have a figure out. See how you feel. Are you excited about the IPL being here? It's quite interesting that there's so many stats regarding that. I'm looking at the Sharjah Cricket Stadium especially, and it was established in 1982. So can you imagine, we had a cricket stadium since 1982 here in Sharjah. The capacity is 27,000. They do have floodlights. And the total matches played are 14. The batting first won 9, batting second won 4, and the highest score was Afghanistan, 215-6. Now, these are all factors for cricket fans are probably saying, yeah, that's true. But over here in the UAE, can you imagine how many talented cricket players they have that are probably on these streets or on these pitches in the desert, on road, safely, of course, and performing, and yet we sometimes look outside for talent. I'm always one to look at development and coaching and scouting. I know in places like France and in Africa and in England and even in South America, you can pick up athletes on the street just by the way they control, the technique, the technical aspect. There's so many different factors. But here, do we do enough of that? So 4215 Etisalat or do let me know. Are we doing enough in terms of our scouting system? And is the conditions of the pitch a factor? Because when I was in Africa, they always said to me, if you can play here, you can play anywhere in the world. And that's why normally the African athletes are looked at as quite strong. Physically, mechanically, they're able to function irregardless of the conditions or the height of the grass. 4215 Etisalat or do. I'm going to play you some tunes. I got some JP Cooper, The Reason Why. And we'll be right back after this to answer all your questions. Give me a thumbs up if you're on Instagram Live, or a like, or if you're on YouTube. I'll be back straight after J Cooper. Enjoy.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show. Can you believe it? It's already been 3 segments. We're on the 4th segment now. This is the 4th segment. This is your segment. We take all your questions, comments on the day, how you found the show, what you'd like to see more of. And before we carry on, I have to say that I do have a special guest coming in on Monday, Yaz Moves, who specializes in movement and mobility and health, and she's a spinning instructor and she's an educator. And we're going to be talking about a few things on there. She's probably now on the Instagram going, what are we doing? What are we talking? It's going to be a casual conversation. And once again, you'll be able to experience one of my fantastic guests that I've been very fortunate enough to have here on the Halftime Show. You know, definitely feel like I've punched above my weight in getting some incredible people on the show. And it's been really, really nice. So thank you, because what that does, it adds a different dynamic to the Halftime Show, which is more than just sports, as we kind of gathered from now. Here are some questions and comments coming in. Where is the only place to be at 3? Hassan has a very good question. The Halftime Show on Pulse 95. See, this is going to be easy. I would think the altitude. Yeah, we were talking about altitude training, which Angelica, shout out to Angelica, Almas's mom, was speaking about with Almas. What is more challenging, altitude training or training in the humidity? There's a very good point, especially if you're asthmatic, like Almas. Do you think it's too much if I do more than one thing a day, or as long as I have the energy, it's fine? Very good question, Moza. So I actually think when it comes down to it, mapping it out every week or every month in order for you to see what your energy levels are like. Obviously, the human body works in different ways, and obviously from male to female, regarding the way males function, even sometimes the way they get tired, and also regarding how females function with their cycle and with their recovery patterns and their sleep patterns, and if they're looking after, certain things. There's so many factors there. If you do have the energy, I would say it's great, but I would also say to listen to your body and to be able to understand what's best for it. So sometimes we miss meals if it comes down to nutrition. Sometimes we don't sleep enough if it comes down to the recovery. Sometimes we train the same style of training, which again doesn't shock the body. So there's so many factors. I think when you actually put it out on paper or on a whiteboard, for example, you can actually see exactly what you need to do. So that would be my answer for you. If you do have energy and it's two different styles of training, whether it's, for example, say strength training in the morning and maybe you want to go for a swim in the evening, or if it's, for example, doing a conditioning set in the morning, then maybe some yoga in the evening, or something that's going to be a lot more good for the body, I would say we could do that. What's up, Namir and Laith from Stay in Your Lane? Great to see you there. Coach Omar, you should have come to watch our friendies yesterday. Almas, I apologize. Coach Omar was trying to train to be able to justify the week's action. So I will come and watch you guys play or train. And Almas, you should also, I think you might have a meeting at 4 p.m. with the Reset group. So hopefully you come on there and we can talk about it more. That's clear. Thank you very much, Moza. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Hassan, we want to see more of Manchester United support and love as you are a Man United fan. Right, I think we're going to end on that note. Reaching full time on the halftime show. Remember, guys, you can catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 3 to 4. Thank you again. I don't say this enough, but thank you again for everyone who does watch the YouTube videos as our shows get uploaded to YouTube, who do check out the podcast on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Anghami if you're fans of podcasts, or even just give us a like on Instagram and say thank you for being part of the show. I really appreciate that. So what's up, Kaleem and Fahad, of course, and everyone else who's tuned in. It is full time. Yaz Moves will be here with me on Monday, 3 to 4. We have reached full time. Hassan, you are completely right. Here's the full time whistle, and I hope you had another one, and it is there for you to enjoy. Have a great Saturday. I hope you have an incredible week ahead, and I send you love and blessings from the halftime show on Pulse 95.
The heart of Sharjah.
This is Pulse 95.
Heart of Sharjah.